what moment did you realize this is something that is going to be your mission?
Our origin story is I was in marketing for 20 odd years. I did English at Edinburgh Uni. Didn't really know what I wanted to do after that, to be honest.
Meet Matthew Norbury, a founder on a mission to make Neurotech truly human. As the CEO of FC Laboratories, he's building BrainFit, a breakthrough wearable that helps people measure, improve, and protect their most powerful asset, the mind. Matthew's work is reshaping how individuals and organizations understand brain fitness, turning invisible fatigue into clarity, confidence, and resilience. His passion is simple, empowering everyone to unlock stronger brain health.
And just fell into the marketing game. Initially, festivals and events and things like that, and then what nowadays they call experiential marketing. Then led into more traditional marketing, ended up running my own agency with my wife, doing all sorts of things for all sorts of people, small local brands, big global ones. But then I think it was about 2015, 2016, some might call it a midlife crisis, to be honest. I think I was definitely getting a bit bored.
So you've worked in marketing, culture, now neuroscience. What is the correlation between all of this?
I think it's a real benefit, and I think it's often missing in many startups, tech startups. It's just that understanding of people, who your customers might be.
While building BrainFit, has there been a moment of frustration, of probably brain fog, that made you say, this has to work?
So originally, no. So when it was that high-risk sector, canary down the mine concept, it was purely like the marketing head on, and kind of joining the dots, pulling in an opportunity that I identified and then got to know, and then a little bit of understanding of the technology side of things, and thinking there's a solution. It's what marketing people do, actually, is find solutions.
So this is the podcast where we are going to be taking a deep dive into something that is unusual. We are all used to Fitbits, something that you put on your wrist that tracks your health. Now we have something that tracks the brain. And to me, this is amazing, turning neuroscience into the next fitness frontier. Today we have Matthew, and he's going to be telling us all about it. So Matthew, if we bump into each other over the weekend and I ask you, what do you do? How will you explain it to me? Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 sentences.
1 or 2 lines, what I do. That elevator pitch. So FC Labs helps you to measure and manage and improve your brain health and fitness in the same way that your Fitbit or your Garmin or your Apple Watch does your physical. It's as simple as that.
So you are basically saying that brain health can also be measured the same way we measure physical health.
Exactly. We measure absolutely everything. Some of us more than others. If you're a professional athlete or you work in a high-risk job, oil and gas or construction or some high-risk manufacturing, or if you're in the military, you're a jet fighter pilot, there's data absolutely everywhere, from environmental data, but looking at the human body, it's all from the neck down. And we measure things in our daily lives and some of us become somewhat addicted to it. So we measure our steps, our sleep, our calories, our heart rate variability, all of these things. I mean, some things we now measure which most of us don't actually know what it really means, to be honest. There's almost too much data nowadays. But it's all from the neck down. It's all about physical health and fitness. And your Apple Watch or your Fitbit will tell you if it thinks you're stressed. But it's really just looking at your heart rate. It's looking at your heart rate, and if your heart rate's elevated and you're not running or exercising to elevate it, then it will guess that you're stressed, that your heart rate's higher than normal because you're stressed. And that's useful, but it's not particularly accurate. So stress happens in the brain, and unless you're measuring the brain, you're not measuring stress. To be honest, unless you're measuring the brain, you're not really measuring sleep, actually. You're just measuring things that happen while you're asleep and then guessing. So movement and body temperature, things like that, are used by your Apple Watch to guess at how you've slept. And what we're trying to do is help people to take the guesswork out of what's going on in their brains, because we believe it's, as you said, it's the next frontier. We measure everything else. We're trying to manage and to optimize everything else. We're using wearable technology increasingly as part of our healthcare systems to be more predictive, more preventative, to empower individuals to better understand and therefore to better look after themselves. But as I say, it's all from the neck down. We're not looking at the brain, which arguably is the most important bit. Without the brain, nothing else works. So, we think it's the next frontier.
You know, as you are describing it to me right now, it is sort of making sense, but it is also begging the question, then how come the big tech have not tried to do this or are not doing it?
Yeah, so we do see some of them are. So Apple have lodged patents recently using their AirPods with EEG sensors around the edge. So using that part of the head. One of the challenges actually with wearable neurotech, with looking at the brain, is that not everybody wears something on their heads, and it's quite a big ask to ask somebody to wear something on their head when they don't already. And big tech has tried this with glasses before in terms of those, and they're starting to gain traction now, but there's been a few attempts by big tech.
Google glasses, they tried it and they failed.
Yeah.
And I think Meta had to go to Ray-Ban.
Ray-Ban, yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so it's getting there. They keep trying, and you can see in terms of the work they're doing, the products they release, and the patents that they're lodging, you can see that it's increasingly a focus. I think the biggest challenge for wearable technology is that they see the opportunities still with wrist-worn devices, so ones and rings increasingly now. So I've got an Aura ring on, which is doing exceptionally well. Still, the number of people using a ring as a wearable pales into insignificance compared to the number who are using wrist-worn. I think big tech still see those wrist-worn devices as the big opportunity for them. As I say, we do see them getting involved in the wearable neurotech space. Typically, it's buying up smaller companies. I'd be lying if I didn't say that being acquired by big tech isn't a potential exit scenario for us. We're developing something very, very specific, which we believe has mass market potential, but it's a lot easier to get that mass market potential if you've been bought by Apple or Google. So yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't think that was a potential exit scenario for us, because they've got history of doing exactly that. So they are looking at it. I just think they've got other priorities at the moment, but we definitely are conscious that that's not going to last forever. And you see lots of other startups starting to enter the space, actually, which is good for us. It's good to be early. You don't want to be the first or the only one. That's never good. You want to be different in some way, but it's never good to be on your own. That's potentially a great kind of position to be in terms of first mover and creating a category, but it's a lot of work, and most startups don't survive that.
Wow, this is quite novel. And what moment made you decide you are going to pursue this? Because you could definitely be thinking, okay, this is something, there could be something here. At what moment did you realize this is something that is going to be your mission?
Yeah, it's our origin story is a bit. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. So, I was in marketing for 20 odd years. I did English at Edinburgh Uni. Didn't really know what I wanted to do after that, to be honest, and just fell into the marketing game. Initially, festivals and events and things like that, and then what nowadays they call experiential marketing. So anything kind of live, which was great fun. Enjoyed it a lot. It then led into more traditional marketing. Ended up running my own agency with my wife, doing all sorts of things for all sorts of people, small local brands, big global ones. But then, I think it was about 2015, 2016, some might call it a midlife crisis, to be honest. I think I was definitely getting a bit bored. of the agency life. Not of that, we had some great clients, did some great work, but I think I just needed a change. And I think my wife felt the same as well, and she went off and did some very different stuff. But I didn't do anything that different, to be honest, but I started doing it for different people. So I did some pro bono, I worked with charities, started mentoring young people and young entrepreneurs, and also ended up working for a little bit of time in Codebase in Edinburgh, so working with tech companies. And that's where, I suppose, two things. One, that tech startup world just is pretty cool. It was exciting, it was different to me. And I also found that whilst I was surrounded by incredibly bright, ambitious, often much younger people, talking about things I barely understood, to be honest with you, they seemed to value what I brought as well in terms of the branding and the marketing and that side of things. So that was kind of great. That kind of re-energized me a bit, I think. But it also exposed me to a handful of things which none were exactly what we've ended up doing here, but there's elements of it and experience and things that I saw and friends and contacts I made as well, which led to initially the idea that prompted me to incorporate the company. After several months of exploring this idea, this opportunity, and validating it, was what led to this, actually. So it was high-risk sectors, construction, oil and gas, engineering, and so on, where fatigue has an impact on the brain. It increases risk. So if you are tired, your brain's not functioning as well as it should, mental acuity, as some people call it. So risk increases of accidents, injuries, fatalities. And I'm kind of joining the dots a wee bit, but got to understand that's a huge problem. It's an invisible risk, and businesses, employers don't like risks that are invisible, that can't be measured and can't be managed. And because I'd been doing some work with not technology exactly like ours, it was using EEG to help people sleep, basically. So it exposed me to that world, which I previously hadn't been. And I kind of just joined the dots and thought maybe we could use something like that technology to measure what's going on in people's heads while they're working and take the guesswork, as I said before, out of what's going on in the brains, like a canary down the mine in terms of a really simple early warning of when risk was increasing. So I again had some contacts and spoke to anybody who would listen in these high-risk sectors, and found that they did see it as a big problem, liked the idea of the solution, and that's when I started the company. And that was it. It was pure, like there was no, beyond seeing a commercial opportunity and doing something which I thought was quite interesting and exciting, challenging, which was an appeal to me, definitely. There was no kind of personal mission there exactly, other than creating a company to do something new and different. But you can't help but work in this space, initially in the safety space, where you're talking about saving people's lives at the end of the day, improving safety and well-being. And you can't help but become mission-led or purpose-led in particular. And that's very much become a much bigger part of the business nowadays, because we've moved slightly, although we're still working with businesses in high-risk sectors, we're still developing a hard hat and a bump cap solution for more of those high-risk sectors where it's injuries and fatalities and avoidable errors, which are the problem we're setting out to solve. But actually we found, when we first started doing trials a couple of years ago, we found individuals saying to us, I'd really like this for me. I can see why my employer is trialing this and is interested in this, and I want to be kept safe and well while I'm doing this high-risk job. So I'm welcome whatever they can do to achieve that. But I really the idea of for my personal benefit, been better able to understand what's going on in my brain and the factors affecting it, and to build that brain and mental strength and resilience so that I can perform better in my personal life, in whatever that means to people. Sometimes people are sort of taking on challenges, because basically BrainFit is about being better able to cope or to tackle the challenges that life or work throw at you. And there's no avoiding the challenges that life and work throw at us, or challenges that we choose to take on, like starting a wearable neurotech company, for example. But we all face challenges. We're all stressed, we're all fatigued. And if you're brain fit, you're better able to cope, basically, is the simplest way to put it. So we found individuals were interested in what we were doing for themselves. And we saw that as an opportunity in two ways. One, it's quicker and easier and cheaper to produce a baseball cap as a consumer technology product than it is to do a hard hat or a bump cap with all of the enterprise software that's needed to make that work in terms of the monitoring of risk and integration with existing systems and all that. We're still doing that, but this is absolutely the path of, it eases the friction, basically. So we're introducing it to individuals. It's all about them. It's a much simpler, cheaper, faster product for us to develop and get to market. And it also then eases the path for introducing the technology in the workplace from the employer. Because if you can imagine, if you, in any sector, actually high risk or otherwise, if your boss comes in and says, either with something like this or something like this, and this is the first time you've seen it, and they say to you, put this on your head, it's going to let me keep track of you. You're going to say, sod off, basically. Some high risk sectors, that's less of an issue because it's about safety, it's about keeping people safe and well. So there's more of an appetite for it. But otherwise, it would be seen as quite intrusive. It would be seen as, why do you want to monitor me? What are you going to do with that data?
Wants to read my mind.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing that people still sometimes think, can it read my mind? We can't at the moment anyway, and we've no intention. But with this first product, so the baseball cap, it's all about empowering individuals. So it's a consumer technology product, first and foremost. Empowering individuals, helping them to better understand what's going on in the brain, giving them the support to improve it. For whatever reason they want to improve their brain fitness and performance, we find that most of our earliest adopters are choosing to take on challenges. They've chosen quite demanding jobs, including startup founders, actually. A lot of startup founders we work with. And we're helping them to build, just like a gym or a personal trainer would with your physical fitness. If you decided you wanted to, I don't know, get fitter and healthier for whatever reason, or a particular event or challenge of running a marathon, for example, you would get support and advice and a wearable to help you track progress, to build your performance, to build the necessary fitness so that you can perform at that chosen challenge. And we're just the same for the brain. So we've found our earliest adopters are people who've chosen generally to take on challenges that demand brain fitness and performance. Lots of people in high stress jobs. So rather than high risk, although we are still working on that, high stress jobs where lots of stress, lots of fatigue, but you need and want to be able to perform. That's where we're finding our first. And that then introduces the technology, normalizes it, helps people to understand and accept it and want it, so that in the future, when employers in these high-risk sectors do introduce more of a monitoring application of our technology to keep people safe, it's more acceptable because people understand it, they know it, they're familiar with it. So it's very much, we've had the questions that this year in particular, when we've really kind of doubled down on this particular kind of consumer technology product, the questions have been, is this a pivot? Are you now B2C? And we are to an extent, but it's looking at B2C as a tactic. Our goal is still B2B for all sorts of reasons, high risk sectors and others, but B2B is where we'll see the scale. And there's all sorts of reasons why B2B is a focus for us, but B2C is a tactic first and foremost. As a marketing guy, it's rules are made to be broken. It's like you've got to be B2C or you've got to be B2B. I'm like, well, you can kind of use both.
So you are building a wearable neurotech.
Yeah.
And talk to me about the early days of you talking to this idea to your neighbors or your friends.
Yeah.
What do they think of you when you are talking about building something like this?
They're interested. I mean, it's new, it's novel. It's people are like, oh wow, I'm not really familiar with that sort of thing. Nowadays, I don't think I'd get quite the same response because people are more used to wearable neurotech of various descriptions. They're used to neurotechnology. You still, in the early days, actually, most people just hearing the word neurotech, even if they understood it, which some people don't, would go straight to drilling holes in the head and attaching that whole sort of brain-computer interface, Neuralink and Elon Musk and so on. Because back then, and I mean still, but back then, that was very new. That was getting a lot of media coverage, so people were aware of that, and they would go straight to that. If I talked about what we were doing, they think, "Oh, is that like so and so?" It's like we're not drilling holes in your head. So initially, it was. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was good in a way that people weren't familiar. They were always interested. We've never been short of interest in what we're doing, but interest doesn't automatically mean you've got a successful business. So it's something that we've needed to manage very carefully and use to our advantage. Absolutely, if you're doing something new and novel and people always be interested in it, that's fantastic. But you still need to focus in on where you're going to find those first customers. For us, that's always been the challenge, because again, something new, it's not like we can say we're like that, we're going for that market and those individuals, and we can see our very, very direct competitors and we are different and better because of X, Y, and Z. It's much simpler. For us, I would never say we're unique, but we are pretty new and novel and different. In many ways, you could see us as creating a category in wearable neurotech, because there aren't many, and this is where it does start to get into us being somewhat unique. There aren't many wearable neurotech products which you would describe as genuinely being brain health and fitness trackers in the same way that a Fitbit or a Garmin is a physical health and fitness tracker, so designed to be worn for long periods of time, and tracking general wellness, I suppose, is what it boils down to. Existing wearable neurotech is very often more about brain training, so you wear it for 10-15 minutes to do a particular kind of gamified brain training exercise. There's lots of those, and again, we're very different to that. So we are establishing a category, but again, people are familiar with that type of thing. Would typically say, "Oh, are you like that?" And we're like, "Well, kind of." So it's in some ways it's getting easier. I think we're about to hit a really nice point for us where the understanding of wearable neurotech, of the importance of brain health and fitness, reaches that point that it just really supports our launch next year and our hopefully quite rapid growth after that. I think our timing is potentially very good, right, but it's crucial that we maintain the kind of the speed of development. Because 4 years ago, even if we'd had the ability from a funding and an R&D perspective to get this out onto the market within months, I think it would have been too early, actually. Whereas I think now it's good, and we see that in the response that people have to what we're doing. It's much more, it's less like kind of puzzled, not really seen this before. It's more, I can see how this is important and could help me, and which is good. So that process of education is getting shorter and shorter, which is, again, good for us.
Impressive. Of course, your marketing background is shining through in the way you describe all of these things, which, it is amazing.
Lots of words. I need to be more concise.
No.
Definitely.
It's not lots of words. It's words that describe, you are able to paint a future that anybody will want to get into.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by your marketing. So you've worked in marketing, culture, now neuroscience. What is the correlation between
those
all
two?
of this?
So I think I was going to call it a superpower. I don't mean to call it a superpower, actually. I think it's a real benefit, and I think it's often missing in many startups, tech startups. It's just that understanding of people, who your customers might be. Not necessarily are, but who might want your product and why is the single biggest question many tech startups don't seem to understand. They don't seem to ask, actually, in many cases, which I think is why, going back to me kind of working with some tech startups and young entrepreneurs in Codebase, I think that's why my experience as a marketing guy was useful, because it wasn't just helping them to make a nice website and craft a marketing campaign. It was understanding people. That's the thing that's always fascinated and I found incredibly rewarding throughout my marketing career, and particularly because I was like face to face. It's like live, like with people. It's the same if you're doing, I don't know, digital or billboards or whatever. You still need to understand your audience to have that empathy. The big one for me actually is curiosity. I'm just curious about people, about what makes them tick. And as a marketing person, you do sometimes. We were never selling people cigarettes, or we did a little bit of work with alcohol brands, but generally I was comfortable with the brands that we were working with. I never felt like I'd sold my soul, but as a marketing person, you do sometimes sort of question, am I just trying to sell people stuff that they neither want nor really need? And I think that was possibly part of my midlife crisis. Although I would want to say to any of my former clients who are listening, it wasn't you. We'd worked with some great clients, loved it. But I just think it was I'd got to that age perhaps where I was looking for something a bit more. And even though FC Labs wasn't immediately a kind of purpose-driven business, I do think that was something I was looking for, as well as producing something physical, like something tangible. I think I'd been missing as well. But that curiosity about people and that empathy, I think, is a good word for it too, in what makes a good marketeer is crucial for a successful tech startup. You need amazing technical people and scientists and engineers and all of that, particularly when you're doing something like this. But if you don't understand the problem that people are feeling and how they would like a solution, and sometimes they don't know, that's the challenge. But something like this, there's only so much you can ask, because they're going, I don't know. I've never had something on my head that's told me what's going on in my brain in real time. So I don't it sounds cool, but I don't really know how I'm going to use it or how I want it to deliver that data to me. So that's been a challenge for us. But my kind of curiosity and empathy about people, I think, is what makes FC Labs and puts us actually in a good position in terms of the product we've developed, because it's all about the individual. It's all about, even though we started as more of a monitoring solution, this canary down the mine in the high risk sectors, actually it's become more about empowering individuals.
I love your analogy of canary down the mine. It's really It's really, really nice.
It's simple, and I think it applies to what we're doing either in the consumer, so empowering individuals to better understand. Just been simple. That canary down the mine analogy is really all about just being simple and accessible and actionable. So we get, I've got this Oura Ring on at the moment, and it's quite new, so I'm still getting used to it. So the app's still somewhat unfamiliar. I look at the home screen, I'm like, I've got numbers for lots of different things. I don't really know what it means.
What does it mean?
To be honest, a lot of the time. As with us, the power's in the trends, the power's in the data, how it's fluctuating, how it's changing. But there's too much data. I used to use Whoop, and again, love Whoop. Great product design. Wear it 24/7. Fantastic, but too much data.
Too much.
If I was a professional athlete, which I'm clearly not, maybe that level of granularity of data is useful. If I've got a team of coaches and psychologists helping me, then maybe that level of data is exactly what's needed to get those incremental gains, and so that you can win. But for normal people, I think we're increasingly seeing and hearing that there's too much data from our wearables, and what we want is actually just to be told what
exactly to do.
Yeah.
So everyone talks about mental health. In fact, it is becoming, sort of another topic that anytime it comes up, I just sort of, keen.
Yeah.
And you talk about brain fitness. What's the difference between the two?
We would define brain fitness as encompassing mental health. The main reason, so we deliberately don't talk about mental health. A whole host of reasons. One, it's a very narrow term. Two, all the stigma and the preconception. So it's a barrier to reaching people. So as soon as anybody talks about mental health, we typically instantly think mental illness.
It's stigma.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stigma around it.
Huge. It's been overly medicalized. So if you go to your, HR manager or to your GP or whatever the process is, if you're feeling that you need some help with your mental health, the first step typically is, you need to see a therapist. The first step isn't, how are you sleeping? What sort of exercise are you getting? Social interactions, all of these things which are absolutely vital. Like the three biggest impacts you can have on your mental health are sleep, learning how to identify and manage stress, and physical activity. Other things too, like positive social interactions. So actually speaking to people. Could be a stranger. You just chat to the checkout person at Tesco for a few. They might not want you to necessarily, but if you get any kind of social interaction is good for your mental health. And I think there are lots of people where we go from zero, people aren't feeling that great, to then being given therapy through their health insurance or through the NHS or through their employee assistance program at work. And I think there's a big gap where, this is why it's about empowering individuals. There's a huge gap where it's just helping people to better understand what's going on in their brain and why their mental health might not be where they want it to be, because of all of these other reasons that are really within their control to drastically improve. It doesn't mean it's easy, but that's where we're trying to, we think there's a massive gap there. So that's really where we're trying to fit. And in terms of mental health and how it relates to brain fitness, we're looking at helping people to better understand this part of the brain, so the prefrontal cortex. So this is where we're looking at blood flow and oxygenation levels. We're looking essentially, in the simplest terms, and my kind of neuroscientist colleagues will probably roll their eyes when I say things like this, but we're looking essentially at how hard and how well that part of the brain is working. So it's brain health, fitness, and performance. And the prefrontal cortex is responsible for a whole host of things. Again, the neuroscientists will roll their eyes, but it's executive function, it's focus, attention, decision-making, composure is a good word as well. But it's also regulation of emotions, and that's where it really overlaps with mental health. There are a whole host of reasons why mental health might not be where you want it to be, a whole host of reasons for certain mental illnesses. In terms of regulation of emotions, it's about being able to choose how you respond. It's about strength and resilience, actually, as well. So we are all going to be put under pressure. We're all going to feel stress. We're all going to be fatigued. There's going to be times in our lives where we might feel like things are getting on top of us, like our mental health, to use that term, is not where we want it to be. But if your prefrontal cortex is fit and strong, you are better able to cope. You're better able to tackle and to get through these times. If you're choosing to do something which might risk your mental health, and again, I'll use the example of a tech startup founder, like why people do it to themselves is a big question, but absolutely, without a doubt. And but like in marketing, I'm not just kind of saying this because it's my company. In many ways, I'm our kind of absolutely our biggest ambassador, biggest champion, but I'm also our harshest critic. And I wouldn't say this if I didn't genuinely believe it and had found the benefit myself. If you are brain fit, you will be better able to cope with the challenges of being a tech startup founder. Absolutely. And that's particularly that mental health aspect. You're more in control. You can choose how you respond. You can keep your brain from being kind of taken over by that fight or flight mode, which is what happens if we're stressed, if we're tired. Quite often, different part of the brain takes over. The bit that thinks that there's something out there in the world wanting to kill us. Used to be polar bears and saber-toothed tigers. Now it's just stress and too much screen time and all sorts of things. But it's if you're fitter and stronger in terms of your brain health and fitness, you will perform better. You'll stay in control. You choose how you respond rather than just react.
React irrationally.
Yeah.
So when you started FC Labs, what particular problem were you trying to solve?
Very, very specifically, it was accidents, injuries, fatalities in high-risk sectors. Very specific. Some people would say I should have kept it. Because being focused and specific about a problem is typically a good thing as a startup. I am very conscious, and in some ways it's a constant battle, because we realized relatively quickly that the opportunity with the technology that we developed was much bigger. The danger is that you let it get too big, or that you try to do too much. You try to
spread yourself so thin.
Yeah, that you try to boil the ocean, so to speak. And it's something I'm very, very aware of, because it's trying to find the balance between, it goes back to the question actually you asked earlier about how people respond or responded to the idea, to me doing this. And I find it harder now because our ambitions are quite big. We are tackling a big problem with something that's quite novel and unique and in a different way. We don't have to choose to set our targets as high as we do, but we have as a team, as a founder and as a team. We're aiming high. I won't share our forecasts on this, but our numbers get big, and that's not usual in this country particularly. I've been in workshops with Scottish Enterprise even quite recently, and I love Scottish Enterprise actually, but there's always a little smirk when if we're asked what are your 3 year, in 3 years, what's your turnover going to be? And it's like always a little smirk because it's a big number. It's not pie in the sky, particularly now we're so close. We've got all this data, this pipeline, this proof. It's not pie in the sky. I mean, if I'd said it like 5 years ago, it's a bit more kind of how can you back that up? What have you got to back that up? Whereas now we absolutely have. But there is still a little kind of, ooh, that's a big number. You don't usually hear that size of number. And that is hard, like as a founder, because it just, you're not surrounded by people for whom that's normal. Whereas if I was in other parts of the world.
Definitely. I know, if you're in Silicon Valley, for instance, that's what will be expected of you.
Yeah, you'd be weird if you didn't say, because the market opportunity is clearly
you are expected
huge.
to dominate the world.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. And we're a bit more
conservative.
Yeah, conservative, risk averse. Yeah. We're a bit more, we don't like to sort of stand out too much, that kind of tall poppy syndrome. And so that, I find that hard, actually. Even family and friends, it's just totally alien.
As we are talking about this, I used to be a digital marketing manager for an events company in Dubai, and we do events for oil and gas company.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what will happen if, every oil and gas, people who are on the oil rig gets, mandated to get this. What's going to happen? If you take this to the US, what's going to happen? Australia, they have mining. People who do mine. I'm just thinking of application. Whatever number you've come up with, I'm sure if you're a marketing guy, if the sales is done right, if the introductions are done, if the thing is well presented, I think the sky is the limit considering the application just on this one from my own perspective. Which
no, absolutely. And many of our investors, potential investors, partners, still see those high risk sectors as kind of the big prize. And I don't disagree, to be honest. I think consumer technology, very fickle, very, very difficult for all sorts of reasons. And many investors do prefer B2B, B2B SaaS. So software as a service, or hardware as a service in this case, high risk sectors, you get long contracts, the scale from a single customer, all of that kind of stuff. I totally get. But for us, and this has taken some persuasion, not even of the team to an extent, but certainly existing investors and partners like Scottish Enterprise talking about how and why we want to go down this B2C route first. It's taken a while, but I do think it's the right approach. It does mean that potentially that B2C side might take off too. Who knows? We've not specifically set out, and if you look at our business plan and forecasts, it's very much using B2C as a tactic to get into B2B, and then, as I say, still developing the high risk use case product. But that's, as you say, just from this, the numbers are significant.
Can go to the moon just with this.
And it's and that's a hard when it's not normal. I do feel we've got some great investors, some great partners, but you do have to look carefully at. It's a mindset, actually. I think is the biggest thing, and I think in Scotland in particular, the founders talk a lot about investors' appetite for risk and the investment landscape and that sort of global mindset, and equally investors say, well, if I was chatting to somebody just the other week, an investor up from Cambridge, and he said, we don't really take Scotland that seriously because nobody thinks big enough. Like, come up and it's like, it's a great product, but why are you saying I'm going to sell into the Glasgow market this year, then I'm going to move into it? It's like, come on, think a bit bigger, think global from day one. And there's lots of people, some great initiatives in Scotland trying to encourage us to do that, but it's still not normal. And for businesses like ours who are thinking global from day one and thinking big actually from day one, it's a real challenge that it's not as normal.
Challenging the status quo.
Yeah. It just, again, it takes, actually, it's one of the things that takes BrainFit. It takes resilience when it's just not normal, when you feel like you're constantly questioning yourself in a way, that kind of imposter syndrome. And it's, you need a real kind of thick skin, real resilience to keep going when it's,
while building this, again, you must have talked about this, but I want you to pay some attention to this. While building BrainFit, has there been a moment of frustration, of probably brain fog, that made you say, this has to work, this has to work?
So originally, no. So when it was that high-risk sector, canary down the mine concept, it was purely like the marketing hat on, or marketing head on, and kind of joining the dots, pulling in an opportunity that I identified and then got to know, and then a little bit of understanding of the technology side of things, and thinking there's a solution. It's what marketing people do actually, is find solutions to either challenges or opportunities. And I identified this opportunity, and pure luck in a way, that I'd been doing certain things over the previous couple of years. So had been exposed to this world and just joined the dots. There was no personal story of an accident or injury, thankfully, in the family, which is good. In some ways, it does make a good pitch when you can stand up and give a very personal story, but I thankfully haven't had that.
Thank God.
But then, as we've got more into the individual being at the heart, so as it's moved slightly away from the focus being monitoring individuals and more towards empowering them, so that it does encompass that kind of mental health world, even though we don't use that phrase, that's become much more personal, because I do have personal experience of that. I think we all do, on both within ourselves, but also family and friends. So that's become much more personal. And you get to the point now where it's one of the reasons we're pushing so hard and putting the investment, both financial and otherwise, in that we are, as an individual, as my family, as a team, because it feels like it needs to exist. There's a problem, and we can see, and it's not just us, we can see we've got the confidence that other people see it the same. So it has got to the place, not that it's not going to fail, but it's at the point where there's that real, this needs to exist in the world, and we will fight tooth and nail to make sure it does, definitely.
We'll fight on the ground, on the sea.
That's it.
Till we find the solution.
I need to make a note of that. That's there'll be a LinkedIn post in that. I'll get AI making me look like Winston Churchill or something.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So now, what's this device does is to measure the activity in the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. Can you explain it in plain English?
So a lot of people describe us as being like a Fitbit for the brain. I don't. I mean, it's not inaccurate, but I think it's a lazy way of describing. So I wouldn't, as a marketing guy, I don't particularly like that way of defining us by referring us to something else. But it is correct in many ways, including the core technology. So if you look on the back of your Apple Watch or your Fitbit, you've got lights, mainly green, sometimes red, depending on what they're measuring. We're using very, very, very similar technology. So we're using near-infrared light, which needs to be on here. So within this cap, which is a non-functional mock-up, we've got 4 LEDs and sensors on a strip that sits on the forehead. And that light shines through the skin, through the skull, into the brain, not hugely deeply, but into this prefrontal cortex area. It's completely safe. There's actually research that suggests it's good for the brain, that near infrared light. So it's completely safe. And we measure what bounces back. Just like your Fitbit is measuring the light that bounces back, so it can give you your pulse and your blood oxygenation levels. We're exactly the same, but we're doing it
on the head,
on the brain. So we're looking at blood flow and oxygenation and deoxygenation. And the brain, like any other muscle organ, needs oxygen. It needs oxygenated blood to provide energy to work. So, and then it takes deoxygenated blood away as kind of waste, basically. So we're measuring that process. It's called hemodynamic response. And I think I used the term before, we're essentially measuring how hard and how well the brain's working. So focus, attention, decision making. If you are focusing, paying attention, the brain's working hard, lots of oxygen. It's not quite as simple as this, but it's the best way to describe it. In the same way that if you're in the gym and you're doing, I don't know, bicep curls, then the body will send oxygenated blood to the biceps to provide fuel, and it will take deoxygenated blood away. So any muscle that's been asked to work, oxygenated blood in with the energy, deoxygenated blood away. Brain's just the same. So if you are focusing, paying attention, lots of oxygenated blood, and that is it's the best way in a very simple way to describe what's going on. In reality, it's a bit more complex, and that's where, in terms of the data and the insights that we provide the individual, it's processing all of that in a much more complex way than just oxygenated blood good, deoxygenated blood bad. It doesn't, because in some instances you actually want low. So we define it as brain performance. So you've got brain fitness, just like physical fitness and performance. Brain fitness is that kind of underlying level of fitness. It doesn't go up and down drastically minute to minute. It goes up and down relatively gradually. You can train it, you can build it. It's affected by various factors, including nutrition and hydration and things like that. And you can train it, you can build fitness. So you can build performance, physical and brain. But then the performance is the real time, and that's the thing that you need our device to wear, because you're looking at the brain activity in real time. Depending on the task, you might want your brain performance to be high or actually to be low. So if you are, a good example is driving. So we use this quite a lot, where if you are in your own car, in driving around Glasgow, city you know well, your brain performance might actually be quite low because it's all very familiar. Your steering wheel's on the right-hand side, and it's not that you don't need to think, but you don't need to concentrate as much as you would do if you were on holiday in a hire car in a city you don't know well, driving on the wrong side of the road. Your brain performance then would be much higher. And it's similar in, people talk about flow state. It's not dissimilar to that. It's something which makes it slightly more complex than just, in fact, some of the wearable neurotech out there is just oversimplifying it, and it's looking at, if you've got lots of oxygenated blood, that's good. But it's not that simple. And so that's some of the complexity in what we do and how we present our data. Because at the end of the day, that's the product that the individual's benefiting from. It's like a cap or a hat or whatever we end up putting our technology into, glasses, helmets, all of that. That's not really the product. The product is the data and the insights and the support and the benefit that they feel, as you say. That's the product.
So can you give me real life examples how somebody like a footballer, because I think a footballer will be able to use this.
Yeah.
A surgeon, or somebody working in a mine, or somebody working on an oil rig. How can they, or even a founder, of course.
Yeah.
How can they benefit using BrainFit?
I'll describe a scenario that's common to all of them, actually, just very different, not that different in a way, but so if you think about a footballer, we'll use that one first. So you are playing in a, I don't know, cup final, really big match, 80,000 people. Some of them like you, some of them don't.
Ibrox Stadium.
Exactly. So maybe fewer than 80,000. I don't know. But it's a big game. It's a big game. Big game. Lots of pressure. Lots of stress. You've maybe not slept that well the night before because you worry all of this. So yeah. So you get out and you start playing, and you're becoming. You're feeling maybe you're behind. Maybe you're ahead actually, and particularly in Scottish sport. Sometimes I remember Scottish rugby. Used to be famous for being able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Actually, it's like just because they were winning. It's like, oh, we're winning. It's like
snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's totally the other way around.
I think lots of. I mean, I'm familiar. It's like it's the excitement, it's the stress, it's the adrenaline of whatever scenario. Sometimes it's because you're winning. Sometimes it's because you're behind. Sometimes it's because I don't know the opposition supporters are particularly vocal and saying some not nice, that you're feeling the pressure, you're feeling the stress of the occasion, of the fatigue because you've been running around for 60 minutes already, or and being BrainFit is about being able to cope with all of that. It's having the brain and mental strength and resilience to perform at the best of your ability, even though you are stressed, you've been abused by the opposition's fans. It's been able to perform under pressure is the simplest way to put it. And in fact, Scotland the other night did pretty well against Greece, actually, I think. Don't want to make it all about brain fitness, but they were down. It was like, 5 minutes in, and they got all the goals in the last 15 minutes. So they pulled it out of somewhere. So I would say that's potentially a good example of brain fitness, that ability to perform under pressure, even though you're losing, you're running out of time, you're tired. They performed well, and you can train that. You can build it. It's all up here. It's all prefrontal cortex. It's all the ability to choose how you respond to the stress, to the pressure. It's fundamentally the brain working better, actually, as well, because you will have more stamina, you will make better decisions. It's just a stronger, fitter prefrontal cortex just works better, actually. But one of the things that's part of that is choosing how to respond to stress, to pressure, so that you can perform. And that is the same if you're a footballer, if you're a surgeon and you've been doing a 12-hour operation, you're tired, you still need to focus. Oil platform, not particularly nice place to be. You could be, 2 weeks in, you're missing your family, it's been stormy, you've not been sleeping that well. It's a dangerous, high pressure job. Just the same, you need to be able to perform under pressure. And it's not that is all that being BrainFit is about, but certainly our earliest adopters, and it would include people who care about performing in sport, so footballers, people who have high stress jobs like surgeons, or high risk jobs like on an oil platform. It's essentially the same, and that's one of the opportunities for us, but it's also one of the challenges, is that the potential market is so broad for the same product. It's not like we're having to do a different product for a different kind of niche. It's fundamentally the same problem, and our solution is fundamentally the same for all of them. But as a startup, you've got to pick. And we've definitely found our earliest adopters, where we're seeing the greatest traction, soonest and biggest, is with individuals who care about performance, care about sustainable high performance. And that includes people in both high pressure, high stress jobs, also sports, professional, but even just people who care about performing in the gym, or they're doing a 10K or a half marathon or something like that. It's whatever performance means to you. If you care about it, that's where we're finding our earliest customers. I'd had a few discussions with people about what affects the brain, what affects your brain fitness and performance. Sleep, stress, physical activity, the three big ones. Water, hydration, because like the rest of the body, it's primarily water. So if you're dehydrated, even a tiny bit, it has a huge impact on your brain performance. So we're doing a little study into the link between what we measure, so the data we can collect and provide on brain fitness and performance, and hydration. So we're giving away smart water bottles.
I want us to talk startup life, which is something you've been doing for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest part of turning neuroscience into business for you?
I think so I've ran my own business before, a marketing agency. So I thought, and it had gone well. I don't know, I'm touching wood because it's in the past, but it went well, and but it had ups and downs. And I thought, my wife and I, working on that together, I thought we worked hard and it was stressful at times, but it's nothing compared to the sort of tech startup. And I was thinking about this just the other day. It's kind of, what's the difference? And the difference is you're trying to, before you can even sell something, you're trying to create it. Whereas, and for us, that's something which nobody had done before. It's not like we were just trying to make a better, I don't know, like just a cap, for example. It's trying to do something that nobody's done before. It's the time, the money, the risk involved before you've even got a product to sell. Whereas with a marketing agency, there's lots of other marketing agencies. We'd been doing marketing for years already. So whilst there is risks and stress in starting a business, there's something very different about a tech startup, particularly where you are having to create the product from scratch. So I found it a lot harder than I thought it would be, actually.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought it would be hard, which was partly why I wanted to do it. I thought this would be an interesting challenge. And I think looking back, I suspect if we were to do this in a year's time, I would say something completely different, because if we'd spoken 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said the hardest thing is trying to do something that we don't even know is scientifically possible. Whereas now we know it is, so we've de-risked the science. Now the hard thing is selling it, the commercialization bit. So there will always be something that becomes the hardest thing you've ever done, I think. But that's partly the appeal of it. I think I get bored when things are easy. So I do relish the challenge. When I find it particularly hard is when I'm tired or not eating properly or not exercising. But basically when I'm not taking my own advice, actually, in terms of brain fitness as well. So exercise and sleep, identifying stress and learning how to manage it. When I'm not doing those things, that's when I find it really hard. And there's times when it's a roller coaster. And I think the single hardest thing being in the UK and doing something which is deep tech and it's hardware, that needs a lot of money, that needs a lot of capital. And it's not easy to get anywhere in the world, particularly the last 2-3 years. And it's been harder and harder to access that investment. But in the UK, for something which is high risk, deep tech, hardware, it's really difficult. And we've done a lot with not very much. Some would say we've been capital efficient, which is a good thing. We've just worked bloody hard. I was really going to swear then, actually. I was feeling the personal pain coming out there. It's been bloody
I can
hard.
imagine.
Trying to do as much as we've done with the resource that we've had, that's been the single hardest thing. If I was to do it again, I would not do it in this country. I wouldn't even try to do it with the amount of money we've done it with, to be honest, because it's just been too hard. But on a personal level, it's been too hard.
So talking about investors, clients, would-be clients, how are you able to convince them that this is not just another wearable gadget?
Yeah, so over the years, I've realised that I've needed to stop trying to convince people and find the people who don't need convincing. My tendency, I realised quite early on, was to focus. If there's a room of people and you've got 99% of them totally get it, love it, and one person doesn't, I would focus in on the one person who doesn't. I'm like, why? That's a waste of time. So with something like this, some people don't believe in mental health still. They just don't. And it's not just a generational thing, although it's part of it, and it's getting less and less now. But for a long time, even just talking about mental health, and I use that term deliberately, it's people just don't believe in it, don't get why this would matter, but particularly to an employer. But lots and lots of people do. So, and finding the ones who do is the challenge, rather than convincing the ones who don't. And it's the same with investors. So, and some investors, just whatever they think personally, their funds just aren't right, because they've set up a specific thesis and specific criteria for a reason. So even if they absolutely love what you're doing, as a fund they can't invest. So why just that? Yeah. So it's kind of know your audience, and find those people who get it. I think because of the nature of the problem and to a degree our solution to it, people either get it or don't. If they get it, they tend to get it in a really big way and become very, very passionate about it. The ones who don't need more education and convincing, and that's just the way it will always be. But from both finding investment and finding customers, you're trying to find the people who need
little to no convincing.
Exactly. Yeah, you're trying to find the people from a customer point of view, our earliest adopters, who people are that they're already looking for it.
When you are building something that nobody has built before, how do you define done?
How do you define done?
Yeah.
For us, I don't think it will ever be done, because this technology is so new and so potentially transformational. It's not. I mean, we talk about this stuff in kind of pitch decks, and it's not an if. It's a when. Not for us as a business necessarily, but in terms of this type of technology, the ability to take control of your brain fitness and performance, and to do all the things that we say we're doing in terms of being able to measure and manage and improve your brain health and fitness as easily as you can your physical. That's not an if. It's not a nice to have. It will happen. We believe we're one of the first, so it can be part of establishing that category. And our vision for the business is there will need to be kind of exit opportunities for investors and so on, but myself and the team, our vision is to establish FC Labs as a global leader. So in terms of done, it'll never be done. I mean, with a whole host of reasons, the brain, we're just starting to scratch the surface of our understanding of it. the new Dan Brown book, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with Dan Brown.
I've read. I've read 5 of his books.
Da Vinci Code and all that kind of stuff. So he's deliberately controversial, but very often he's either looking back to sort of conspiracy theories from history, or looking forward
to
in terms
match it to what is currently happening with the Pope right now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting stuff, and I suppose it's the sort of literature you either love or loathe. But I find it quite entertaining. And this latest book's literally just come out in the last couple of weeks, I think. It's all to do with the brain and human consciousness, and so it's starting. I think it's another example actually of how society in general is starting to kind of look at the brain as, okay, this is the next frontier. This will, in terms of human health and performance and all of the weird and wonderful stuff that Dan Brown's talking about in his book in terms of consciousness, but it will not be done for a long time. And if we achieve our goal of becoming a global leader in that world, then we'll not be done for a long time either. It's very easy to think, it's very tempting actually to think, as soon as we got this out and it's on people's heads, it'd be like, oh, I'll be able to sit back. But we won't. We'll need to keep improving the product. We'll need to put it into different headgear. We'll need to make it better. There's so much data that we collect, even just using our current device. So much data. We're looking at cardiovascular data from the brain, basically. So there's so much we could do. There's so much we know we can do with it, and we'll develop. There's so much we just don't know yet what's going to be possible. So huge amounts of data. The amount of data we will be collecting almost becomes a problem, actually, because there's so much of it. But with that is potential.
So you are basically preaching brain fitness. How do you keep your own brain fit? And what, as a startup founder, what are the things that you do that we can also learn from?
It's hard. I was saying before, it's when I don't kind of take my own advice, or when I say take my own advice, I mean the advice of the team and the psychologists and neuroscientists on the team, prioritizing sleep, avoiding alcohol, getting enough exercise, in particular, are things I struggle with when I'm very busy or stressed. And it does become, as I think many people are familiar with this, becomes a vicious
cycle.
So, yeah. The less you do it, the more likely you are to not do it and to feel doing stuff like this, actually. I always find chatting to people really good.
Impressive.
Yeah. So thank you. This is like therapy.
Thank you. So Matthew, what's one mindset shift that you've had to make from coming from a marketer to a scientist, entrepreneur, tech founder?
Mindset shift. I think for me, because I've always had quite a high appetite for risk and always quite relished the challenge of hard things. So I don't think there's so much a mindset there. One mindset I've found is with kind of budgeting and investment and moving fast. So we've done kind of 2 main investment rounds, when you get a lump of money coming into the bank, and then you've got a runway and things that you're trying to achieve with that, but it's finite. That's quite hard. From a mindset point of view, you need to be not being wasteful and not like just throwing money out the door, but if you've got a plan that investors have invested in, you need to deliver it. And that means for us in the general, really, it's been about spending quite a lot of money very fast. That's quite stressful because you can see it going down rapidly. You can see the end of that runway approaching. And just from a a business point of view, typically it's about preserving cash, not spending it as fast as you can. So that's a mindset which I've had to get into. And I think it's human nature as well. It's like, when I think maybe my underlying appetite for risk has found this perhaps easier than others might do, but almost not spending your way out of trouble, but you need to, if you're trying to make progress, if you're trying to do something that nobody's done before, if you're trying to do it quickly because you're conscious that there's a window where we're early and I think can have a real impact, and sees a big market, but that window will close. Going back to your point about big tech, there will be a point at which they come in and have hugely deep pockets, but there's no indications that that's happening anytime soon. So we do have a window, but we need to spend. You need budget, and for us, going again, point about doing a lot with not very much. It's stressful. It's a certain mindset. Like, we're just getting down to the absolute wire sometimes is stressful, because and I think it's, although it's counterintuitive, you have to do that, or else the more prudent approach would be, let's slow right down, let's cut back, let's do less. But I think that is then when you're on the journey to fail.
So this is going to be the last question. What do you see the future for BrainFit to be? What's going to be the future? What's going to be the roadmap for the next 5 years? And will everybody be wearing BrainFit? If we are wearing BrainFit at work, and what are the concerns, the ethics of all of these when my employer is measuring my brain activity? And just sort of see if we can wrap it up on that note. Is it possible?
Absolutely. Our goal, our vision is 1 million people BrainFit by the end of the decade. That doesn't necessarily mean 1 million caps. It means we're working and supporting 1 million people to prioritize BrainFit, to live BrainFit first, as we say. So that's our goal, that it's normal to make caring about your brain health and fitness not just as easy because of our technology, but as normal and as aspirational even as it is to care about your physical health and fitness. So that's very much our goal. That's the mission, the vision for the next 5 years. That will involve 5 years time cap, bump cap and hard hat. So we'll go through this kind of B2C launch, leverage that into B2C launch, sorry, B2B wellbeing benefit, where employers are paying for this for their workers, and then the high risk sector. So that's our 5-year plan. If you look at our business plan, things change, don't they? But that's the plan, and that would be a significant business, and we'll be well on our way to being that global leader in wearable neurotech. That's the 5-year plan. It's a really interesting question to end on in terms of the ethics of it, the privacy, the regulatory world. And there's two things I would say on this actually. One is that I do believe that wearable tech in general, including ours, should be more regulated. It should be a medical device because it's been treated like that, even if that's not the intention of the company producing it. Increasingly, it's just how it's been used, and it's not that there should be a one size fits all, but I do think it needs to change. So even consumer technology like your Fitbit, I think should be more regulated. I think the brands see it as an opportunity anyway. I think they're moving into that medical device, that health care world anyway, because there's money there. So I think the regulation will come. But I do think that's where it should go in terms of regulation. I would just rather it didn't happen in the next 12 months because it would, it does put a bit more of a burden on the business, doesn't it, from a regulatory point of view? And that whole kind of med tech, health tech world is definitely in our future anyway. But I think from a privacy point of view, again, the regulations, the laws need to catch up globally, UK, Europe, US. They need to catch up in terms of neurotech. And we're already playing a part in helping to mould that kind of regulatory world that as a business we'll be growing into. And the single most important factor, which I do think it's actually a real USP, like a genuine USP, it's not just lip service to it, is that the individual is at the heart of everything. They have to be in control, like genuine transparency, genuine control, not just a fancy TV ad that talks about how important your data is to them. It's history is proof that it's not. So that's really, really important. So we as a business would like to, are leading from the front and will continue to, and can hopefully make a world where everybody's happy and healthy and secure. God, that was a bit too neat at the end. But,
Right, thank you so much, Matthew. We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure. No, thank you.
Really appreciate you sharing what you are building with us. So when do we have a time frame when we can go buy this?
Yeah, so we are just about to open pre-launch orders for this. So we'll be shipping this from spring next year. So we're just opening that kind of early bird pre-launch order list, and then we'll get it out there and start at the same time to work on those high risk sectors. But this consumer technology empowering individuals is available next year for a select few from the end of this year, actually.
Oh, nice.
Because we've got some units coming that allow us to do kind of trials and demos, and
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll keep you in mind if you're interested.
Right, please let me know how you're interested. Thank
Cool.
you so much, Matthew.
Pleasure.